Hello, welcome back to this channel. My name is Zoe. In today's video I want to share with you what I read in August. So this channel was a little bit quiet the last couple of months. I need to say that there was nothing bad happened. I just was busy with work, busy with uni, and I didn't read anything the whole July. So my motivation to film anything was zero. I started reading again in August. Could I film something? Yes. But I also was a little bit lazy to do actually one single thing. So yeah, now I'm here and I want to film for you my August wrap up, what I read. It's technically not, the August is not over. I still have this day and tomorrow left, but I will not finish a book. So in August I read a total of 11 books. I don't know how much pages it was. I don't know my average rating. I could, I guess, figure it out now. But I will tell you something about the books as I read them. And yeah, let's start with the first one. So the first book is a little bit special to me because it got me out of a reading slump. And the backstory to it, it's not long. I decided to go to a bookstore and just go into this bookstore, read the back of the books, and decided to buy one. I know, crazy, but honestly, all material I have here is based on recommendations from the internet or from friends, and I didn't do it in quite a while to just go in a bookstore and just pick one out that I think I will like. And I decided on Girl Goddess Queen by Fritzgerald. So Girl Goddess Queen is a Hades and Persephone retelling, but with a twist that we all know that Persephone was kidnapped by Hades and they live in the underworld. He married her, and we all know that story. But the twist to this story is that actually Persephone didn't get kidnapped by Hades. She ran away to Hades to hide there, to not get married to one person that she didn't actually want to get married to. And we follow their story now with this background information. And I really enjoyed it. I like the writing style. What I like most about this is that this book wasn't just pornography like with all the other Hades and Persephone retellings I read so far. And this was something I really enjoyed. So I give this a 4 stars. There was something missing for me to give this a 5 stars, but this book saved me from my reading slump, so props to that. The next book that I read was a present for my birthday from my friend Jolene, and she gifted me Love Theoretically by Hazelwood. And I also read this, obviously, and really enjoyed this. So this is about Elsie Hanaway, and she is, I think she has a PhD, or she's doing a PhD in the moment, and she's a professor also, adjunct professor, and she doesn't earn a lot of money, so she ends up being a fake dater. So people give her money and she fake dates them to the family and stuff like that. And one guy that she fake date, his brother is a professor at the MIT, and he doesn't like her, or she thinks he doesn't like her, and she really wants to get her dream job at the MIT. And we followed their story, and I really enjoyed this. It talks about obviously this is a romance book, but it also talks a lot about being a woman in the STEM, being a woman in this industry and what it means to be. And also Elsie Hazelwood wrote in the end in her endnote that some things that happened to Elsie is also things that she experienced, so Elsie Hazelwood or other women in STEM that she knows. And so this has a little bit of a bitter touch that I enjoyed. It's just the fact being a woman and live in the society. So I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars, and for the laugh fact, Now thinking back, I have multiple copies of the Love Hypothesis. When I think now back to it, there were a lot of cringy moments, but with this, it was actually enjoyable. It was not cringy, so, or at least for me, it was not cringy. So I really appreciate the book. The next book, I don't have a copy of it. I read Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. So in this Dreamland Billionaire series, the main point of the series is that they are brothers and their grandfather died, and all the three boys have different conditions how to get the heritage. So in the first book, in the final offer, I think the brother that was in the final offer, he had a special condition to bring back the amusement park to a good status like it was before. And in the second book, in Terms and Conditions, the one brother, I forgot his name, he needs to get married and produce an heir for the family line. And it's all based on that the grandfather doesn't like his son, and the boys doesn't like the father, so they really want to get through with these conditions to get the heritage to outthrone the father. So you know what I mean? I don't think so. So in the second book, obviously we have the condition that he needs to get married and has a child, and this needs to also be a fake marriage or fake relationship, but with the fact that they're really married for this amount of years and have a child together. And he is really unbearable. He's like really a mean guy. And his assistant Iris, I don't know her name, she decided, okay, we can't find a bride that wants to stay, and I know you for a long time, so I will be your bride. And then they get married. And I wrote in my Discord channel, not my Discord channel, I have a friend group in the Discord, and I wrote there that I'm currently reading this, and I think this is going to be a 5-star. I really thought it, because in the first book, I didn't like the first book because the main girl, Sarah, she was really unbearable for me. She was really annoying, and she was really mean, unnecessarily mean. So I just really got why Rowan in the first book was acting this way he acted, because I would act it too this way if someone comes at me in this tone. And in the second book, the Terms and Conditions, we followed a story that was purely based on a lot of miscommunication. But I let it pass because they really had both great character development and both say their boundaries, what they have, and they accepted it. But the thing is, what I had with the miscommunication, that I was for sure, I know how this book ends, how the third act breakup will happen, and I was like, okay, this book could either win me over and I give this a 5-star, it couldn't ruin the whole book. And the third act breakup ruined the whole book for me. Maybe I quite spoiler, so I will write where you can skip if you don't want to hear it. But in my opinion, the fight that they had, why it ended up being in the breakup, it was okay with me. The fight was okay. I got both of the sides, the points why they decided to fight and what was said. It was mean, it was hurtful, but I get why they end up being in this situation and why they choose the words that they choose. But the thing is, when it came to the apology part, where they should really talk with each other, they end up not talking. They just had a monologue in their head that was really great, but they didn't spoke these words to tell their partner what they're really feeling or what they're thinking, and they just solved the problem like they did whole book. So for me it was like, okay, now you're solving this breakup fight with the same tactic that you solved everything else before. Like, I'm for 100% sure that these two will not get a divorce, but it will happen over and over and over again till one day they really decide to talk with each other. So I give this in the end a 3-star rating. The next book I read was Open Water by Caleb Azumah Nelson. This book is about 2 young black people that meet in a pub. You follow the guy's story, and he has really big troubles first of all, both of them are artists, so they struggle both being an artist, and also he struggles a lot about being black. And the thing is, I can't say anything about the problem of being black because, as you can see, I'm white as my belly shelf, so I can't say anything about that. What I can say is that the writing style was really beautiful, okay? But it was so beautiful at one point that this book is short, as you can see. It took me over 2 months to finish this book. I started this book in June. So I need the whole July and August to finish this book because it was so beautiful written that it was, for me, from time to time too complicated to understand what he really means with the sentence that he wrote. So I needed to read over and over and over again till the point where I was like, this is what he meant. And I just think I'm for someone I think who loves literary fiction, I think it's literary fiction, this would be an amazing book, a 5-star read. But I'm not really reading literary fiction, as you can see from my background. I'm a really big fantasy reader and sometimes romance, or this one a lot of romance, so this was too much for me, so I ended up giving this a 3-star rating. And this hurts because it was really, it was beautiful written, okay, but it made me sometimes feel dumb, so, and I don't like that. The next book that I read was a graphic novel, and this is the second book in the Witch graphic novels. So maybe you know Witch from back then, from the 2000s, with the 5 witches that control the elements and save the town, not the world, the town, okay. And I was really a big fan of it. I read the first, and I was really a big fan of it, and the company decided to redo all of the comics and bound them in one big book together. Not one big book, but in a book series where a lot of graphic novels are inside or comics are inside. And so it counts as a reread because I already read them back then when they first came out. But obviously there's still a few new things to me because I didn't have all the comics. And I really liked the first one. I gave this a 5 stars just for the nostalgic. And in the second book I read, when I reread the second book, I was also a big fan of it. But there happened a few things in there where I was okay, this is actually problematic what happens in there, based only on the relationships that the witches, the characters have with the guys, because the age difference is sometimes really questionable, okay? So I ended up giving this a 4 stars because I still enjoy this, and the relationship is such a minor part in the overall story. It was more on how to save the other worlds, and their town, and the relationship is not a big part of it, but it still gave me the ick. The next book I read was A Light in the Flame by Jennifer Armentrout. This is the second book in the prequel to the From Blood and Ash series. And I have this book on my 23 books I want to read in 2023, and I finally read it with the end result that I didn't have any clue how the first book ended, and I needed to read something thanks to one person that wrote a summary on her blog. I read that and I enjoyed it. There were good plots in it. The relationship between Licht and Zerbrich was also good, but I didn't really like the name choices that Jennifer Armentrout made in this book, in the book series, because there are a lot of characters that have similar names with each other. So Nektas is the guy, the main guy, and he has someone working for him that's called Nicht. So nectars and nictos, like what the fuck is going on with you? And then we all know from Blood and Ash, the main person is called Poppy, Penelope, and there's also someone in the A Light and a Flame, A Flesh and Fire series is also called Penelope, Poppy. So this was also really confusing for me. I think about too much, but nectars and nictos, they were really close to each other. They were like friends. They were like really this. Oh, I can do it. Like this, the whole story. So it was really confusing when it's like, oh, nectar said that and nictos said that. Like, I listened to the audiobook, I was like, who the fuck is talking? Who the fuck is talking right now? And after not reading the book in a long time, I was like, okay, I'm just confused. Like, who's talking, who's who? So this was a minus for me. I gave it an 4 stars because the plot was so good. And she announced that, surprise, this series is also not going to be a trilogy. It's going to be a 5-part series. And I'm still waiting for the last origin book. I'm not asking for much. I just asked for the last origin book. Jennifer, if you're seeing this, you wanted to publish 5 books in the origin series. Now you're only doing 4. We have 3. Please, for the love of God, write the last book so you can finish the series, and then you can write as many books you want for the From Blood and Ash series and the Flesh and Fire series. I don't care if it's a 10-part series, okay? Just finish the one series that you already started. I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for 3 years now. Next year it's going to be 4 for the last book. Please, write it. Then I finished a series. This is a German book, so I will talk quickly about it. Zerbrich und Nicht is the 4th novel in a series. Book 1 and 2 is about one couple, book 2 and 3 and 4 is about the other couple, and the main girl in the story is the sister of the main guy from the first 2 books. And the main guy in this book is the best friend of the guy from the first 2 books. Okay, really confusing. I read this, I enjoyed this. Was it groundbreaking? No. The writing style was great. I flew through this book, okay? She could write 1 book with this couple. There was no need to be this two books, okay? There's one last book coming out still this year about the other couple, and then this world will be done, and I will obviously read this just for the fact also that this other book is just 1 book under a 2-part series. Then I also finally finished another series, and this is the Priest series by Simone. I love Priest. I love the second book, I forgot the name. Then I read, but I didn't read these 2 books in this month. I read Midnight Mass, and this is the sequel or the mini novella after the first book, Priest. It's about a couple that are happening in Priest, and all I can say is the book had not much substance to the story. It was just pornography, page on page, page on page. So there was no point for me buying this. If you want to read more sex, you can read this, but don't expect a great plot to the story. This is all I can say. And the other book that I read is the last book in the whole Priest series, and this is Saint, and this is about the brother Aiden, and he became a monk, and the monk Aiden was in love with Elisha. Elisha is the brother of the main guy from the second book, so they are all connected to each other. It's not incest. They were already in a relationship, Elisha and Aiden. And because of something that happened in Aiden's life, Aiden decided to become a monk and just ghosted Elisha. Just told him while they're living together, hey, I'm becoming a monk. And then we starting off the series when Aiden is already a monk for 5 years. And he is really happy as a monk, and Elisha comes to the monastery. Okay, they visit monastery for monastery in different countries and visiting their beer tasting or doing beer tasting and see how they brew beer. as a Catholic, I think this is a really basic saying that all the monks do is brew beer and drink beer. But honestly, I just also don't know what monks do. I know what nuns do, because I also go to a school that was a monastery, and or still is part of it, and there are also nuns living there, so I know what they're doing. But I just think that this is something basic to say, that what they do all day is brew beer and drink it. But okay, they go on this trip together, and obviously they have still some feelings for each other, and we are reading the story. My issue with the book is that besides the fact that we read from Aiden's perspective, we don't get to know Aiden. And the whole plot in the end, why Aiden chose to become a monk and leave Elisha behind, this had so much potential to become a really heartwarming and heart-wrenching story, but it ended up not being that because we didn't read about it the whole book, just for the last 4 chapters. And by then I was not ready for it to get emotionally invested in the story in the last 4 chapters. Like, well, why would I waste my tears for something so bare minimum? Like, give me the whole story. Give me the whole inner conflict from Aiden, from the start, from the first chapter. Give me a backflash. Give me the reason, and give me something, and not just the last thing. And also, there's cheating involved in the story, and no, not in this household. I think it's already blasphemy that I'm reading the books, okay? That I read all the 3 of the books. The first one being about a priest fucking someone that just walks in. The other thing is a nun, okay? Apprenticeship to a nun, but she was almost a nun. And then a monk, okay? This is blasphemy. But when I'm committing this, yeah, then at least give me a good story by doing this and not just pornography. In the time I read this book, I could watch a monk porn. I don't know if there's something like this outside, but I could do that, okay? And this would be maybe more emotionally invested in the story than this book did. So I give this a 2-star rating. By the way, Midnight Mass, I also give this a 2-star rating. We're coming to an end. I only need to talk about 2 more books. My 5-star read. This is the best book that I read whole month. And this is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. So this book is set in a world. I think it's really close to us. Or I just imagine that this is in our world. And so in this world there are gods, and the gods are in war. And from our main character, this is this beautiful girl on the front cover. I just love this cover. I hate people's faces on book covers, but there's something about the comic style that always hits me, that I'm like, I need to do this, I get this. And she's Irish, and her brother fights in the war, and she hadn't heard from him in months, and so she needs to get a job, and she becomes a writer in a newspaper, and she is in competition for a job position with this guy, Roman, and they are not liking each other. I'm glad it's called Divine Rivals and not Divine Enemies, because I think this is the perfect example from a rivals to lovers story, okay? They're not really enemies, they're rivals, they're fighting for one position. Iris writes letters to her brothers to the war, but because she doesn't know his address, she just shoves it under her closet, and the letters disappear. And one day she finally gets an answer from someone who says, oh, it's not your brother, it's someone else. And then they starting having a conversation. And yeah, this is a YA book, so if you would point your finger and guess who it is, you probably know the answer if you read more YA fantasy. I'm not saying the name. For me, it was so close to home that I wasn't even surprised. But the thing is, we are living in this world, okay? I only imagine it is in our world, because they have typewriters, they have cars, they have phones, even though it's just other phones. Not like mobile phones, it's just other phones. And I just imagine that this being in our world. I listened to this in one going while I crocheted my sweater. If you're watching my next vlog, you will see the sweater in there. It's just in the other room, and I want to go over there just to grab it. And I listened to this in one stop because it was so interesting. The enchanted animals enchanted elements in the fantasy world was not that big. It was a small description of what happened in the world with a few elements, like the description, okay, who is who God and how they are connected to each other, why they are in war. But besides that, I really enjoyed the story. I listened to this non-stop. I really loved the love story. I also love the... love is a really bad word for it, but I love the description of the war situation when Iris was there. And the last plot, I think I would also guess this from a mile away, but I didn't until it happened, the reveal. So I was a bit ashamed, but also bear with me. I listened to this book 5 hours on non-stop. I neglected everything by listening to this book. I neglected all my friends. I neglected my boyfriend. I didn't answer to any texts, no calls. I just got up to go to the toilet, and still then I listened to the audiobook, okay? I was invested in the story, and I can't wait that this book comes out end of the year. I think right before Christmas. Like this needs to be my Christmas present. The next book, okay? And I hope there's also a stunning cover with these two on the front. So I really like this, obviously 5-star. And the last book that I read is also a German book. So I will talk quickly, and yeah. This is the new series by Kerstin Gier. I already talked about Kerstin Gier in the beginning of the year when I did a vlog, but I reread my favorite books that I read as a teen, and Kerstin Gier was there for the reread series. It was emotionally invested in this. The reread series was my favorite book series, besides Harry Potter, obviously. I mean, obviously, I have a tattoo with the Harry Potter scar sign and a lot of franchise, okay? So, but reread was close to it. It got me into reading. It was emotional investment. This was my first enemies to lovers, okay? So, Kerstin Gier, this book is the first book in the series. This book came out 2 years ago, but I didn't read it because I was like, I'm so mature now. I don't read YA books anymore, especially not German YA. Yeah, end of the story is that Kerstin Gier comes to my hometown in November and doing a signing with the books, and I was like, bitch, I need to be there. And I didn't read the book series, so obviously I need to catch up. It's not much to catch up. There are only 2 books out and it's a trilogy. So I read the first one, which is this one. Was man bei Licht nicht sehen kann. This is the book title, and the series is called Vergiss mein Nicht. Vergiss mein Nicht is a flower. It's a flower. The story is about Quinn, and Quinn, he's really cool, he's popular, he's smart, and one day he jumps out of a window to save a blue-haired girl, ends up being in a fight with a magic creature, runs in front of a car and gets really hurt, and he's now wheelchair bound. Or let's say like that, he works on getting better. He is a paralysis on the, is that called in English word for it? On one side, and can really walk. And then there is Matilda. Matilda is his neighbor, and he doesn't like the Martins. This is the last name of the family, because they're Catholic and they're really like religious, and he doesn't really enjoy that. But he still ends up asking Matilda for help to walk him around, because his parents are like really crazy, you know, and they just figure out if he do something with that. And he's seeing things after the car accident. He sees statues moving, he sees creatures talking, he sees dead people that are obviously not there any longer, and every time he talks about it, all the people freak out, except for Matilda. Matilda is always there. She has also a really big crush on him, and I also read this in one setting. I loved it. I give it a 4-star rating. I need to say I had more emotional investment in the Divine Rivals, just for the fact that the scenes in Divine Rivals was really graphic. It was really a graphic description of war and injuries, so I was more emotionally invested in the story, but this book was still close to it. So this was my whole August. I have no TBR for September. I just want to read more. All the books that I read for this one were all completely mod reading, and I love it. And I want to continue this in September. And yeah, I have a vlog coming. I have technically still a video that I need to edit with all my Funko Pops. And yeah, 3 videos are planned. And then I wish you all a happy day, a happy weekend whenever you watch this. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!